We must often remember, the Tories, still exist. Kemi Badenoch somehow still in charge, although I think we are seeing a lot. I think we are really, really starting to see a lot that the should we say the lack of direction given by Badenoch is finally starting to give the those Tories that are left in the party are frustrated that she won't choose a direction. And as we've always said, when it comes to this, Kemi Badenoch cannot choose a direction because she can either go with the sort of right centrist route, which will upset the people on the right. If she goes with the right one, it will upset the right centrists. And then you're pretty much back to Tory civil war. She has no option really where to go. And Robert Jenrick now garnering at least a little bit more support. But even if he did get in and started doing his, cheaper, more budget version of like Nigel Farage, that's not going to bring back any reform voters. Like I say, why would you vote for Jenrick when you've got Nigel Farage at home? Not only that, what happens to the rest of those right centrist candidates? Ultimately, they'll probably go and join the Lib Dems. In fact, I am very, very surprised we have not seen any defections yet. I am very surprised we have not seen any defections from the Tory party, at least parliamentary ones. We've seen, a couple, but they're not exactly in parliament to reform. But as I've always said, the Lib Dems will be, I think, the ultimate benefactors of any ultimate, Tory downfall. And trust me, in what next month, end of start of September, Badenoch's protection period is up. And that's when people are going to start going, well, we gave you all this time. Nothing's really happened. Are we really going to give you another year? And of course, next year, if she does decide to stay on, big challenges again, local elections and Senate elections. And I think if somehow she manages to stay on until then, there is no way she stays on past those. If those are bad, as all the people are saying that are going to be, then yeah, there's no way she stays on. She gets chucked and probably replaced with Jenrick. If he wins that Tory contest, who knows? It could go all very interesting. Who knows? But we're going to go and have a look at this because this is kind of once again interesting from a Tory perspective, remarking on the fact that, yeah, there was a shadow cabinet reshuffle this week. Did anyone else pay attention to it? Probably not. Even I just realized it the day after it had happened. But yeah, that's a thing that happened this week. And yet completely missed. Normally, this would have probably been like quite a big story, at least at one point. Not anymore. So let's go on into this. And as always, please do click on the like, share, and subscribe button down below. You can see the there's the Patreon page, there's the Buy Me a Coffee link where you can buy me a coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there's the YouTube membership down below as well. So let's get back on to this then, shall we? So this, of course, coming from Conservative Home, the best and still the best comedy website online. So a reshuffle without a story. The Tories, of course, left completely unmoved by Badenoch's shadow cabinet tweak. So it was a long shadow cabinet reshuffle on Tuesday as the LTO and the Whip's office struggled to actually confirm one of their appointments, with the MP in question out of the country and not able to get to his phone. Shows you the dearth of talent that is now left in the Conservative Party. Why are they taking so long? One Tory advisor texted me at the time. Another shadow cabinet minister messaged in, just get on with it. It's not like we're in government. And Kemi now is deal with international crises here. It was a complete hiccup that often comes with reshuffles, but the annoyance, of course, felt by the other MPs and now the hazarding planning involved speaks now to the very pervasive feeling amid Tory MPs very much at the end of it. That it was the idea behind what was all this idea behind the shadow cabinet reshuffle. It all feels a bit like there is no overarching narrative. It doesn't seem well thought out, another Tory told me. Another MP added, we're just sitting here at 15 and 18 points in the polls, and this is all we've got for it. It's just lacking, just a dud. And at that point, he might as well have been talking about Kemi Badenoch. You know, how honestly, we said this before. How long does she survive? I will be surprised if she survives this year. I will be very surprised. And we're probably looking maybe at the Tory conference to see if something like that might happen. If that happens, then things could get very interesting very quickly. But the big point where they will just, I think, just want rid of her completely will be depending on the results of what happens in the local elections and the Senate elections. If those go bad, Badenoch is gone. In fact, pretty much if they are perceived to be bad, Badenoch is gone. And I am surprised that they are still waiting around this much, honestly. So, despite, of course, the previously insisting that the entire shadow cabinet would be in place until the next election, with now former Health Secretary Ed Argar now stepping back for medical reasons, it meant at least making some changes. Many, of course, expected it to be very small, just a shuffling of the deck chairs, as one MP put it. But there had, of course, been an eagerness for now meaningful change, and now disappointment at what some have completely branded a wasted opportunity. At one point, it was thought the LTO might actually be setting on a wider, far more radical reshuffle. There was, of course, at least other two members of the Shadow Cabinet who are at least understood to have been spoken about changing roles. Both of who expressed that they did not want to move. And lo and behold, they were not moved. You've only got, what, 120 MPs in the party. It's not like you have a big choice to make. Oh, and the other thing that also happened, because a lot of other people mentioned this as well, Rishi Sunak gone to work back at Goldman Sachs. Something else not a lot of people mentioned this week, but yeah, that was another thing that happened this week. Another MP, of course, suggested a complete lack of authority. If there are people you are wanting now to shift to the top table and they've hit back at you, you've rolled over. It says a lot about the leadership's weakness. This is something else that is being said as well, that Badenoch's authority has completely waned. It's just completely gone. It's shot. She has no authority. If you've got two people in the shadow cabinet who've just gone, yeah, we don't want to change our roles, what does that say about her authority in running the party? Changes, of course, were made, people were moved, but it felt a bit like a damp squib. She has neither either fully reached now for stability to bring back even more of the old guard, nor has she gone back into a bold and reached for some extra energy, firepower in elevating more new faces, or even promoting those getting cut through. The headline, of course, appointment was, of course, the return of James Cleverly to the Shadow Cabinet. Discussions with him were, of course, still ongoing last week, but the understanding was the pitch made by Kemi was specifically for him to go up against Rayner. It will, of course, help to have another Commons and media performer at the end of the Shadow Cabinet, but the move has also been thought as one to out now and try and help neutralize Robert Jenrick by having another strong figure flanking more to the center. And here's the thing, James Cleverly, as we've said before, Cleverly by name, but not by nature, that could prove very disastrous in the long run. Because those people on the right that support Robert Jenrick do not like James Cleverly. They are going to very, very much perceive that badly. Promoting, of course, Neil O'Brien from former SPAD to George Osborne and Theresa May is now as well co-founder of the think tank Onward, a focused and policy renewal unit and development had gone at least down well, as some had now given the Shadow Home Office Minister Matt Vickers the deputy chairman of the party, but there were an awful lot of wins that are being sold around the party. This, of course, has not been noticed by the bottom three of our Shadow Cabinet league tables after all. Just one reason, and now another exited. But would be interesting to see if this has any changes on the next Shadow Cabinet League table coming up soon. I don't think it will, to be honest. But another senior Tory now says, somehow we've had a reshuffle that is the continuity of the last government. Not fresh, not a confident look. You could have had Stride, Patel, and Cleverly in the top roles at any time over the past few governments. It does not do an awful lot of good in the aid to trying the argument the party now is trying to move on from its record in government. And all you've got are these people that are in these roles. Doesn't look good. Rumors, of course, that some of the 2024 intake would, of course, get a promotion. This created at least a new guard when completely unfounded. And there had even been a more doubling up of junior shadow ministers. The shadow financial secretary, Gareth Davis, had now been given extra work as the shadow secretary for Understate in the DBT. And this goes for the shadow city minister, Mark Garnier, who's now getting a second role in the DWP. There is also no doubt, of course, their ability to at least do the work, but they are already now being set in their treasury roles. This is, of course, questioning why those jobs weren't expanded outwards. It is completely an unimaginative choice, as another senior Tory remarked. In fact, the only movement now for the new MPs was, of course, the shifting of Jack Ratkin to education from PPS away from the justice system, and that was away from Jenrick. Ranrick is, of course, a staunch Jenrick ally and was a big supporter during the leadership campaign. Badenoch backer Ben Osi the original held, of course, the educational brief as well as defense, has now just simply swapped in to replace him. I wonder why that was, one Tory source asked very coyly. Yeah, you want an ally to be keeping an eye on Jenrick. That's why. Oldest move in history. You know, what does it keep your friends close and your enemies closer? Then, of course, Ratkin was, of course, the only move, did, of course, at least spark concern from their fellow new intake. It is very one, Sen MP, but it pointed out as being only 32 years old, Rankin could have called back to the days in education at least more vividly than some of his colleagues. One other senior Tory actually defends it of not elevating any new MPs, saying that nowadays you don't need a position to actually cut through, they tell me. People like Kate Liam have been cutting through just by using video and social media. Another, of course, MP says you need people who at least are hungry, which the 2024 group especially are, especially if the leader doesn't seem to be herself, judging by the new look of the shadow cabinet. It seems to be a lot of the same appetite. This has now left a number of Tories questioning, why would you go through all the hassle for such a minor reshuffle? It may now also leave Badenoch open to a new line of attack. And this is it. This is ultimately the question. And it was the question going back into Boris Johnson as well. How long before enough is enough? At what point do they just go, gone? At least under Boris, there was the excuse of, well, he won that big majority in 2019. And that's what saved him, honestly, for so long before, they just went, right, enough is enough. What's going to save Badenoch here? What has she got on record? What has she done to justify remaining in her position? Not a lot. And it's just a matter of time. Just a matter of time. So it continues. She was just able to use the excuse that people thought the shadow cabinet wasn't, of course, up to scratch, an MP told me. Now, of course, you've supposedly made now your best efforts on at least 2 occasions. If fates don't improve, it's not the shadow cabinet or the person picking it that's the problem. They say, of course, it feels like Badenoch really hasn't grasped the situation that she is in and just how dire it is. And maybe this could be the beginning of the end of Badenoch. Given what was said there, I think maybe we are looking at the beginning of the end of Badenoch. Other than, of course, Julia Lopez and Eric Spurnock, the question, of course, whether there are any real Badenoch allies left, it's saying it could actually be quite a lonely cabinet for Kemi. This is the other thing that we haven't talked about in a while. The fact that she's been losing allies left, right, and center. And we said it a long time ago. Kemi Badenoch does not make friends, she makes enemies. And she used to have at least a cabinet made up of predominantly allies. And supposedly now, they have now been turning away from her, saying, no, she's not the person for the job. That is bad news. That is very, very bad news for her. With a chief of staff, at least Ree Rowley, someone once said she referred to as now pretty much now my closest of friends in politics, now set to leave in October for the private sector to be replaced by his deputy, Henry Newman, a former advisor to Michael Gove. One senior Tory now quips, it is now officially Gove's extended private office. Yep. Remember, it was Gove who put Badenoch forward initially back a couple of scenarios ago. It was always said that Gove was the puppet master, Gove was pulling the strings for Kemi Badenoch. Those stories, even today, as you can see, have not gone away. The change, at least in leadership of the opposition's office, does at least show some hope that Badenoch is at least trying to employ a bit more ruthlessness in being willing to lose friends from a team if it means winning in the political arena. But the mark left is not necessarily a good one. An MP said, it is not a surprise if Lee wasn't up to it, but it looks like that a lot of the people are not up to it have all survived. That pervasive feeling that I mentioned at the start is one of the root of many Tory nerves, as another same MP went on to add, it is just as if she doesn't have the knowledge of where to go next. And that is the situation Kemi Badenoch finds herself in. A very bad situation. I genuinely think, quite honestly, this is the beginning of the end for her. I will be surprised. Well, I won't be too surprised if she doesn't last the year. But her big challenge is 2026, and it is those local and it is the Senate elections. And if those results are perceived as bad, gone. They will just say, right, you're gone. There also may come a point where they may try and push her to leave, even maybe before that. Because if so many MPs are just like, you're not helping, you're not understanding the situation, at what point do they not just, shall we say, push her out, but at what point do they maybe try and coup her? Just do a, as we saw with Boris Johnson, where Johnson tried desperately to carry on, but no one was interested. Might we see a similar situation? Who knows? But I'll tell you now, it is not a good look when the opposition is this weak and this generally shambolic. So, as always, let me know what you think down below. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.